Welcome to the Week 21 Power Rankings in this NBA season. We're coming into the home stretch, and the good teams are starting to separate themselves. The bad teams are starting to not, and some teams are starting to struggle. Looking at you, Grizzlies and Celtics. But let's start at the bottom of these Power Rankings, where we actually have a new number 30. I know, I can't believe it either. But the Spurs are going to fall down a spot here. 16-49, lost 2 games in a row to the Rockets, who were the number 30th team. So credit where credit is due. The Rockets beat the Spurs twice. Now, are the Rockets going to play themselves into the second worst record in the league instead of being the worst record in the league? Or maybe they'll be number 3 and really work their way out of the top 4, top 5. Maybe they get unlucky. It's yet to be seen, but it would just be too funny. Icing on the top of this horrible season for the Rockets if they somehow end up like the number 4 or number 5 seed after everything that has been going wrong and horrible, and Steven Silas all of a sudden goes on like a 5-game win streak to close out the season just before he gets fired. But the Spurs did lose 2 in a row to the Rockets, so they're going to fall down to 38 here, doing a great job trying to tank for Victor Wembanyama. They're just sitting all their guys, Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell. Greg Popovich is doing the ultimate tank job where Devontae Graham is playing meaningful minutes in basketball games. So Spurs at 30, Rockets at 29, and the Pistons, who do technically have the worst record in the NBA, going to sit here at 28th. Again, this is power rankings, not records. The Pistons are playing really ugly basketball right now. Jaden Ivey had his Fab 5, no timeout, still calling it moment at the end of a clutch game where they ended up losing because of that. But all in all, this is just a learning experience for the team. I appreciate that Dwayne Casey has their team playing really hard basketball. They got a couple of veterans over there, something that the Rockets don't have, in Bogdanovich, in Burks, that are saying, hey, we're just going to go out there, we're going to play our game, we're going to try. And at the end of the day, that's all you can ask for from this young, talented team that is sitting Jalen Duren and sitting Isaiah Stewart. And they didn't have Cade Cunningham for the whole season, and they got rid of Sadiq Bey. James Wiseman's looked pretty okay, and Marvin Bagley, with the addition of Wiseman, has said, holy crap, my job is on the line. I got to start playing good basketball, and he's looked pretty good as well. So that is the end of this bottom tanking tier. And then we have a tier up for just one team, because I don't know what they're doing, but the Hornets are starting to win basketball, even though LaMelo is out. They have 20 wins on the season now. Can you believe it? But the Hornets, well, they've lost LaMelo for the season, which is probably the best option. I've been saying since day one, just sit him for the whole year. Let his body get right. Let him put on some pounds and let him figure out how to be a little more durable, because these Ball brothers cannot stay healthy, unfortunately for LaMelo and, of course, Lonzo Ball. Also, anybody who's saying LaMelo doesn't improve teams or play winning basketball or he puts up empty stats, try watching a Hornets game now versus when he's playing. Their offense is just so horribly, atrociously bad. LaMelo Ball is just an incredible player. The Hornets are lucky to have him. Hopefully they get a little luck in this lottery and they pick up a good player to pair up alongside LaMelo. Maybe Miles Bridges comes back and next season might look a little better than being a bottom 4 seed in the NBA. And that is going to do it for the tier of teams that are not the Hornets. I just, they don't belong in this bottom of the bottom tier, because they are trying to win while the other teams are taking. At the same time, they're not better than 26 other basketball teams. So the rest of these teams are going to be in the not Hornets tier. That starts with the Magic, just waiting for them to go on a little bit of a playoff push. Paulo Banchero's been coming back down to earth a little bit. Markelle Fultz has looked okay, but his shot is awful. They're starting to get healthy. Of course, Jonathan Isaac is now gone for the season. Just a really unfortunate story for him. They just need to win games, man. That's at the end of the day, this Magic team, they play tough. They've got a good roster. They just can't win games. So hopefully a little development. They're still waiting for a few pieces out there in Orlando, but the Magic do have a bright future. Just right now, I was hoping that they make like the 10 seed, the 9 seed, at least get into the play-in tournament, and that's yet to be seen, while teams like the Pacers ahead of them have Tyrese Haliburton back. They're winning these clutch games again. They're starting to take a little bit of a lead. And remember, not too long ago, the Pacers were like a 5 seed. So while I do like what's going on right now in Indiana, I kind of hope they lose a little more so that they can get a better draft slot, so they can pick somebody up to pair up alongside Ben Mathurin and Tyrese Haliburton. But the Pacers, they know how to win games. They just need to stay healthy, find consistency, and look to next season. Next up is the Chicago Bulls at 24, and they're not going down in actual seeding, but they are going down into this tier of just really bad basketball teams. Things are just starting to look sad for the Bulls, and the worst part is they don't even have their first round pick this season. Now looking like they gave up not 1, but 2 top 10 picks for Nikola Vucevic, totaling the Vucevic swindle to Wendell Carter Jr., who's not a bad center these days, Otto Porter Jr., won a chip in Golden State, Franz Wagner, and whoever is currently number 8 right now in this year's lottery. It is just bad times for the Bulls. Their pick is top 4 protected, and they are going to try to make a play-in tournament, so we'll see what happens. There's anything that can happen in today's NBA. And that is the end of this unfortunate teams tier. Now we have the WTF is the NBA tier, my favorite, because this season has been nuts. Like, teams between the seeding of 13th to 5th are all within like 3 games. It's a bizarre season, but we'll start at the bottom with the Blazers coming down a spot. The Blazers just suck. It's Dame or bust these days, and the good teams are saying bust, and ew. They're really feeling the loss of Yusuf Nurkic right now. Anthony Simons is out too. They're just struggling with injuries. Already gave up another starter in Josh Hart for Cam Reddish, and are finding out Cam Reddish is not that again. Again, is this a rebuild? Is it not a rebuild? Are they hurting the team? Are they trying to win? They've got some depth pieces that are not getting minutes because they're too raw. Greg Brown III is just super raw, super athletic. Shaden Sharp, he's got some starter minutes, but he's just a young player. He's got to learn how to play the game. Keon Johnson, a lot of Blazers fans are out on, but he's a freak athlete. Jabari Walker isn't getting minutes. So when they have injuries, the entire team collapses because they don't have depth. You already traded away CJ McCollum. You already traded away Josh Hart. So I don't mind if you're improving, rebuilding, but if you're trying to win now and you're somewhere caught in the middle of trading away your good players for draft pieces and young players, then you're going to have this ugly product on the court where it's like, oh, we're win now, but we're also not win now. And then you end up 30 and 34. You're currently what, 15, 14, 13th right now in the Western Conference. And unless Damian Lillard goes hero ball, scores 40 points for you a night, and your only wins are going to be against the Magic and the Rockets in their last 7 games. It's just bad basketball fundamentally from the Blazers, and that's why they're going to be here at 23rd. One spot ahead of them is the Wizards, who are going to jump up over them, and they continue to lose winnable games by going away from Kristaps Porzingis. They rely on Bradley Beal, who, let's be honest, is about 50-50. If he'll be clutch for you, kind of feels more like 40-60. He won't be. Kyle Kuzma, who thinks he's Steph Curry out there, but more like Russell Westbrook, and they just steal touches from Kristaps Porzingis almost every single game when he's shooting lights out. When KP is dominating, and then by the time they get KP the ball back, he misses a layup. He's just so out of rhythm. But hey, they might make the play in as a 10 seed. Rejoice. I can't put my head around why they go away from Kristaps Porzingis. I think he scored like 18 points in the first quarter of their last game, and then he ended up with 24 because they just said, fuck that, fuck winning basketball, let's go and do something else. I don't know what Wes Unseld Jr. is doing out there. Is Kristaps Porzingis tired after trying for a quarter? Maybe. Then sit him out the second and the third quarter and have him come back in and play the entire fourth. I don't know. It's head scratching how the Wizards are playing bad basketball these days. Next up is the Pelicans. Not too much to say about them. Ever since Zion went out, they've just been a bottom 5 team. Brandon Ingram has shown that he can't be a number 1. He's at best a number 2, but clutch shot maker. The rotations aren't great. Herb Jones is kind of having a fallen off this year. Just pretty ugly basketball overall for the Pelicans. Next up is the Nets, coming down 3 more spots. I'm a little torn on where to put them. They are, 8 games over 500, but they just continue to lose games. But they've got some really solid players. They're just missing their, get you a bucket Kevin Durant guy when they go ice cold. I think an offseason of Jacques Vaughn, seeing if he's worth his salt as a coach offensively, is going to work wonders, and they can figure out how to get a number 1 on their team again. For now, they're treading water, and they have no future. They got Mikal Bridges, who's been a stud. He's been elite, dropping 40 points a night for them. To a lesser extent, they have Cam Johnson balling out, Cam Thomas as well. And the Nets are just going to be in limbo for the next 10 years, man. Every win is fun. They're playing with house money. They have no expectations, no desire to win, no desire to lose. They just have fun. You don't have any picks that belong to you for the next 5 years, so just go out there and play fun basketball, I guess. 19th is the Jazz. I think the tank is finally on for them, though. Too little, too late. They're still got, 30... What am I looking at? 31 wins here for the Jazz, 31 and 34. That's just not going to get you a top 10 pick in this year's draft. I mean, an actual rotation they put out there was Chris Dunn, who's actually playing incredible right now, Simone Fontecchio, Juan Toscano-Anderson, Rudy Gay, and Damian Jones as 5 guys on the court at the same time. It was horrible, ugly basketball to watch. They traded away their good players in Conley and Beasley and Vanderbilt. What is the future of this Jazz team? I don't know, but Will Hardy keeps having them win some games. They just refuse to tank. I don't know what else the Jazz can do. They put out these horrible rotations, but they still play harder than the other team. That's why I got Will Hardy still as my coach of the year, despite the fact that they're under 500. Next up at 18 is the Thunder, jumping up 2 spots. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is back, and he's dropping 38 points, and they're winning games. But they're a sad team without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Other than Jalen Williams, I don't think any player has really been impressive for the Thunder this season. Injuries are ravaging them. They still don't have a center. So we'll see how tough and how serious they take these next couple of games. The Thunder, though, do have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. When last seen healthy, they were probably a top 10 team, knocking out legitimate contenders with good fundamental basketball. So Thunder going to sit here at 18th. 17th is the Raptors, jumping up 2 spots. The Raptors are playing pretty good. Once they got Jakob Poeltl, maybe mentally their head flipped and they said, you know what, we're going to play good. Fred VanVleet even had a good game. All in all, just been a really impressive stretch of games for the Raptors. And do they have the best home court advantage in the league? Their fan base is so loud. The crowd gets rocking. And the travel plus customs to Canada probably has to combine for a lethal trip for opposing teams. But they suck on the road, and they're still horrible shooters, and they have 8 guys on the roster who are 6'9", 6'10", and mediocre three-point shooters. So the Raptors still have their same problems, and that is where I'm going to separate the teams. I got a tier gap here of 500. Not a tier gap in skill, just there's so many teams in this tier of WTF is the NBA. I got to separate it and make it look nicer. But the Hawks are sitting right here, 32-32. They're looking okay with the Quinn Snyder hiring. He even sat out Trae Young for like the first 7 minutes of the fourth quarter because they were just rocking and rolling without him. I've said it before, I'm a big fan of his. I probably put him in the 5 to 10 spot of the current head coaches, not top 5, but definitely top 10 in the league. I'm surprised more teams didn't try to go after him. He's coming in with a new perspective, and he's looking at the guys and saying, all right, can you produce for me? Yes or no? I'm benching you, like John Collins, who's been horrible since the Quinn Snyder hiring and honestly been horrible for a couple of seasons. He'll bench Trae Young because his defense leads to losses. That I don't know if that's going to make them a good team down the road, but hey, this Hawks squad is definitely interesting. I'm not sure what their future is at this point. Next up is the Clippers coming down 5 spots. They finally won a game, but it's just been a rough couple of weeks for the Clippers. Eric Gordon looks really bad. Russell Westbrook honestly looks pretty good, but he's going to get all the flack because he's Russell Westbrook, and Skip Bayless is going to continue to say everything that's ever been wrong in the world is because of Russell Westbrook. Their on-ball defense is horrible right now. Their closeouts are awful. Rotations are slow. Their defense is just pathetic. And I know that they're integrating new guys. The big issue is that they're just old as fuck. They can't play defense at a high level anymore. And the one guy who is young, it's kind of sad, Terrence Mann, finally earned starter point guard minutes. He finally beat out Reggie Jackson, and he finally beat out whoever else was on this roster, Jason Preston. They said, you know what? All right, Terrence Mann, I'm going to trust you. You're going to play starting point guard. And they won some games. And then Ty Lue says, actually, you know what? Never mind. We're going to get Russ and immediately send Terrence Mann to the bench again. And Terrence Mann has to go through that whole process of trying to outwork everybody again to earn minutes. I don't know what it is with Ty Lue, but he just loves playing bad rotations. He loves playing Marcus Morris Sr. He loves benching Terrence Mann for players who don't play defense. It's weird, man. And this Clipper squad, you just don't know what to do with. I've been saying it since day one. They don't take the regular season serious. So we'll see what happens comes playoff time. But this team is not looking good. And the team that is looking good is the Lakers without LeBron James. And if injuries were off, I would have this squad take over. I'd probably put them at maybe top 8 right now on the power rankings. They put together about as good of a squad as you can given the circumstances. But now LeBron James is basically gone for the season. He'll come back if there's a chance at the playoffs. Otherwise, he's just going to sit and say, good luck next year. So at the end of the day, this Lakers squad needs to win games, and they need to win games fast. And D'Angelo Russell, that ankle tweak is starting to look a little more serious than it was. Same thing with LeBron. Now he's out 2 weeks. Nope, now he's out 3 weeks. Anthony Davis is going to have to take over this team and carry them to about a 500 record, and then we'll see if LeBron James can enter and close out the season strong. Heat going to sit here at 13th, 34-31. It's really funny because you look at their team, you look at their morale, and you'd say, wow, the Heat must be below 500. But no, they're actually top in the Eastern Conference. Yeah, right now they're the 7th seed, 2.5 games behind the Nets, who they'll certainly pass, and they can be out of this play-in tournament after having a horrible year. Now, Kyle Lowry is still out here stealing money from Miami, but the Heat basketball is just really tough to watch right now. On the one hand, you have incredible coaching. They've got a great development team, and they get these undrafted players who play valuable minutes for you. And you're like, all right, great. But then on the other hand, they're stuck with undrafted players playing valuable minutes for you. So when you need a bucket, you got to rely on Max Strus, Abe Vincent, and Duncan Robinson. It's just tough being a Heat fan right now, especially because they didn't go all in. They didn't make any moves at the trade deadline. But the Heat are 34-31, 3 games up, over 500. It's been a brutal couple of games and a brutal year, honestly, for Heat Nation. 12th is the Timberwolves. They're starting to pick it up. They're starting to build some rhythm. I think Karl Anthony Towns is gone for the season. Same with Lonzo Ball. I just don't think he's going to come back in time for anything, and we have to move forward with the team as presently constructed. That means no depth. That means Rudy Gobert is your starting center, and that means Anthony Edwards taken off. Mike Conley has been clutch. I kind of said the Timberwolves would be disappointed in the Mike Conley trade, but so far he's been pretty good, and D'Lo's been out with injury, so you win some, you lose some. Hopefully he stays healthy. Hopefully he gives you valuable minutes moving forward in the playoffs. Anthony Edwards has been great. Jalen McDaniels, one of the McDaniels twins who's on the Timberwolves, has been playing lockdown defense. They're just playing good basketball right now. Credit Chris Finch finally turning this ship around, and they got a pretty good team going. 2 games over 500, jumping up 2 spots. And the Warriors, they're starting to heat up at the right time. Now, they did lose to the Lakers last night. That was unfortunate. They'd be on a 6-game win streak if they did pick up that W, but they're 34-31. They're getting healthy at the right time. They're streaking at the right time. As for the next team, it's going to be the Mavericks. At the last of this, I don't really know what's going on here. Their offense isn't a problem. Right now, their defense is just horrible. And part of that is because the roster, they just don't have a lot of good players. Another part of that is that the good players they do have, they don't utilize well. I've never seen a guy hate someone that the way Jason Kidd hates playing Christian Wood. I recognize Christian Wood's game isn't great. His defense comes and it goes, and his offense is usually ugly iso ball, but he is your 3rd best player. I don't care how much Dwight freaking Powell fits in your system. Dwight Powell should not be out there more than Christian Wood. And every time it feels like Christian Wood starts to get rolling, he gets into the zone, he gets into the game, he plays good basketball. Jason Kidd calls a timeout and said, you know what, we need Dwight Powell in. 6'8" Dwight Powell, who can't touch the ball, who can't handle anything, who can't shoot. He's a horrible passer. He's out of control, a flop machine. Dwight Powell is bad, and he shouldn't be playing. But for some reason, Jason Kidd and probably Luka Doncic trust him more than Christian freaking Wood. So the Mavericks are out here just spoiling talent, and I don't know how good they're going to be even with the Kyrie Irving signing. It's going to be fun to see them. Their offense is going to be able to put up numbers in bunches, and Josh Green and Tim Hardaway Jr. will play valiant defense. But at the end of the day, I don't trust this Maverick squad, and I really do not trust head coach Jason Kidd. And that is the end of the tier of the WTF is the NBA tier, because we got some good, not great teams going on here. Starting at number 9, the New York Knicks. They're just so much better with Mitchell Robinson. I know we have the Josh Hart meme. The Knicks are 8-0 since the Josh Hart trade or whatever, which is great. Good for them. But it coincides with Mitchell Robinson coming back as well. And they just play so much better with him as their anchor. He's Rudy Goberting it on the Utah Jazz for them this season. Mitchell Robinson probably should be a defensive player of the year candidate if he didn't miss too many games. He's just playing at an all-star, all NBA level defensively. Without him, I looked at the record this season. They were 12-10, so 2 games over 500. And with him, they're 12 games over 500. They're just so much better of a basketball team with Mitchell Robinson anchoring the defense that moves Jericho Sims and Isaiah Hartenstein to their respective backup roles. They're just playing good basketball right now. They're winning games even without Jalen Brunson. Just a really impressive stretch of games for the Knicks. Not going to move at all because the Kings are still playing really good basketball as well. I just need to say I cannot stand the Kings announcers. Now, I'm still predicting a second round exit for the Kings. I think the role players are going to go cold at bad moments, but they are a very well put together team where you look at them top to bottom, you say, yep, the GM knew what they were doing. This is a good basketball team. I don't love it, but I like it, and I think they're going to be a good team. I don't think they're a first round exit anymore, especially with all the terribleness, we'll say, of the top teams in the Western Conference. I think the Kings are going to be a second round exit, and hey, maybe they'll make the Western Conference Finals for the first time in so long. Next up is the Grizzlies coming down a spot, and yeah, you're not going to win a lot of games when your superstar point guard is out and pointing guns at people and beating up 17-year-olds. And well, let's talk about Ja. Let's talk about Ja. Somebody needs to tell Ja to grow up. I know he's only 23, and I defended Grayson Allen for being young, and I have to defend Ja Morant for being young as well. The human brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25 years old. I don't think it's fair for keyboard warriors and the media to attack people until they're at least 25, if not 30. But Ja, I mean, this is the way the world works. You just got to grow up. You're on the verge of being the Grizzlies' face of the franchise, if not already. A $200 million man without taking into account all of his off-the-court income. And he just cannot stop pointing his gun at people. It's his favorite thing to do. He points his gun at rookies on the Pacers. He's pointing it at strip clubs. He's beating up 17-year-olds. Like, dude, you're not hood anymore. You graduated. You made it out. I think every single person in the hood, except nutcases who've been so indoctrinated they think hood is life, would do anything to be in the position that Ja Morant is in. You don't have to live in the projects anymore. And Ja Morant did it playing basketball. He puts a sphere through a circle. It's like he wants to convince people he's still thug. But dude, you get leg massages and you put on makeup for PR sessions. No matter how many tattoos and guns you get, you're just not that guy anymore. You graduated. And it's like he wants to lose everything because he's so tired and so bored of being successful. Now, I did see a report. If you bring a gun onto a team plane, there's a possibility that the NBA could suspend you 50 games, which is already going to be a huge loss for the Grizzlies. On top of that, let's say the gun accidentally goes off. You got a murder charge in your head. You got a manslaughter charge in your head. Hell, even if you just shoot yourself, that's 2 years in prison. Ask Plaxico Burress. I mean, Ja Morant's parents are married and they're happy. Stop being fake. Stop trying to be somebody that you're not. It's just Ja Morant. What else can I say? Grizzlies are going to struggle without him. It is what it is. Next up on the list is the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm having them drop down a spot as well. They just haven't developed the young guys enough to win a chip this season. I think they're going to be a tough out in the playoffs, but that's probably about it. And next up is the tier of legitimate contenders. Starting at number 5 is the Phoenix Suns. They're just playing good basketball. I'm a little hesitant to put them at number 1 overall in the power rankings, but that's probably where they belong. I just need to see a little bit more as they close out the season. KD still looks dumb in a Suns jersey, but he's playing good basketball. Now, they did lose a lot of wing depth. Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, not really. So they're going to need guys like Ish Wainwright and Torrey Craig to step up, which they have to this point. CP3 is going to need to play better in the playoffs because he looks absolutely washed right now. He can't buy a bucket. And honestly, we'll see how this team plays out because right now, CP3 washed. Devin Booker has the hamstrings of an aging racehorse. KD has been injured every single year since the Warriors days. DeAndre Ayton is giving you less effort than James Harden at a Brooklyn strip club, and the depth is gone. The young players are gone. The draft picks are gone. So this team is kind of in uncharted territories. But hey, you got Kevin Durant and Devin Booker dropping 30, 40 points a night for you. You're going to win a lot of basketball games. Next up is the Celtics, and it's finally time to drop them down out of the number 1 seed. I gave them the benefit of the doubt last power rankings. I know the Bucks were number 1 record wise, but I thought the Celtics are still a more complete team, and they turned the ship around, and it's kind of looking bad. Look, the Nets loss was really pathetic. They went up huge, I think 28 points, choked that away, and then the Nets simply outshot them, out-hustled them. They closed the game out. Then they had a double overtime loss to the Knicks, who didn't have Jalen Brunson, had a couple of opportunities to win that game, and then they just couldn't execute. It happens. The Celtics are dealing with injuries. Robert Williams is out again. They're load managing. Jaylen Brown has that mask on still. His face is all messed up. So it's about how you respond, because wire to wire, the Celtics have been the number 1 team in the NBA. Look at all statistics. They've been good. They've only been dominant the first few months of the season. After that, they've just been kind of coasting, and it's a long, grindy NBA season. So it's yet to be seen how the Celtics are going to respond as they head into the playoffs. I believe in this team, but I've never had them as the superpower of the NBA. They've always been like, oh, they're good, but can they keep this going? Can they win these clutch games? Can Jason Tatum elevate his game? And he still is kind of in that top 10 tier. So the Celtics are going to drop down finally 3 spots. It's not a big dramatic fall, but it is enough to say, should we start to be worried about the Celtics come playoff time? Next up is the Nuggets, just continuing to play good basketball, but at the end of the day, Nikola Jokic cannot play defense, so I don't know how high I could really put this Nugget squad when I think there's so many teams out there in the West that could knock him out. I think the Grizzlies have a legit opportunity if Ja Morant isn't pointing guns at Nikola Jokic to win. I still think the Clippers have a chance. The Timberwolves, probably not, but the Mavericks maybe. The Kings certainly could punish Nikola Jokic's lack of defense with their incredible offense, so there's a lot of worry and concern if I'm a Nuggets fan just because of the way that their roster is constructed. Next up is the Bucks' best record in the NBA, jumping up a spot. I'm still hesitant to put them number 1 because Giannis can't shoot, but they're just playing good basketball. Chris Middleton is struggling a bit. He needs to get back into the rhythm. There's 20 games left in the season, so hopefully he can find a good spot and get back to playing Chris Middleton basketball, because this team needs him to be at his best for them to legitimately compete for a championship. And number 1, I'm having the Philadelphia 76ers. They were my preseason favorite to win it all. Joel Embiid continuing to play great. I think he's the scoring leader right now. He's 0.4 points behind Luka Doncic because Luka Doncic is God. He's the second, in scoring. He plays occasionally on defense. I'm a fan of Joel Embiid, but even more, the rest of the team, like James Harden dropped 38 points. He's playing incredible basketball, getting underappreciated these days because he's passing and assisting the ball more than he is scoring. Tyrese Maxey absolutely balling out, and I think they picked up something pretty good in the McDaniels kid out of Charlotte. He's outplaying Tobias Harris for long stretches. D'Anthony Melton is playing pretty good basketball, and I know your ceiling is always capped when Doc Rivers is your head coach. I'm hoping that the 76ers win in spite of Doc Rivers, because Doc, he's good enough to put your team into the playoffs, play good basketball, but are they going to win a championship? Yet to be seen. We'll see how this season plays out, but right now I got a new number 1. The Philadelphia 76ers are my best team in the NBA. Let me know what your thoughts are, what you agree with, what you disagree with, and I'll catch you in the next one.